Ah, the werewolf, or wolf man. Man, wolf, dog, man. The werewolf is easily one of the most terrifying monsters ever thought up by mankind. And yet, it is also one of the most underutilized monsters in cinema, usually being relegated to a side character or something goofy. Even when it takes center stage, it still also tends to be kind of silly. And as such, I am always on the lookout for someone to just make a good werewolf movie. Please. Which brings us to the Wolfman.
Well, actually, werewolves and wolfmen are very different beasts. Werewolves being creatures of the full moon, yet keep their entire intellect intact. Whereas the wolfman becomes a mindless savage creature who will attack any—
Shut up, nerd. Now, I had my reservations about this movie because, one, they basically showed the whole movie in the trailer. Don't do that. So we already know it's a family of three, one turns into a wolfman, and the other two have to survive, which already kind of creates a big problem for a horror narrative, as there is only two people who can die in the entire movie. And a big part of horror narratives is the fear of the characters dying. So by limiting that fear by only having two characters who can die in the entire film, it doesn't necessarily kill the horror movie, but it does mean you're going to have to work a lot harder and add several elements to make your narrative scary. So like I said, I already had my reservations about this movie, but I decided to go see it anyways, as I am just desperate for some good wolf action. You know what I mean. And the Wolfman was, well, just okay. I personally liked it, but yeah, it really is just okay, which is unfortunate because there were a lot of really good creative elements in this movie. But there were also a lot of bad stuff, mostly in the narrative department. Well, actually, only in the narrative department, because everything else was really good. The cinematography was beautiful, and they did a lot of really unique and creative camera work in this movie. Oh, and the practical effects. Yes, I cannot say this enough. More practical effects in horror movies, please. The acting was solid throughout, and the sound design was amazing. This movie is really meant to be seen with surround sound. And there were a lot of cool, terrifying scenes in this movie. However, the narrative just really drags it all down, which, to be fair, is not 100% the fault of the creatives, as the very concept of werewolves inherently has issues when trying to build a story around it. And this movie does address some of those problems, but it leaves too many on the table, and it really sours the whole thing. So, for my highbrow critic score, I give The Wolfman a 6 out of 10. And for my schmo score, the score for the average Joe Schmo, I give it a 5 out of 10. Now, this is the part where I explain my review scores, and I can't do that without getting into massive spoilers. So, if you would like to see The Wolfman spoiler-free, this is where we part ways. Thanks for being here, and I want you to have a nice day. Now, I already mentioned most of the really good things about this movie, but I do want to mention some narrative choices that were actually good. I liked how they took some of the mysticism away from the werewolf to make it feel more grounded. Like there's no "only silver can slay the beast." No, a good shot to the head will do it. Things tend not to come back when you blow their heads away.
Huh? I found it! Without their heads, they're powerless!
Also, there's no full moon shenanigans. It's more like a virus where once you're infected, you're a wolfman. Nighttime, daytime, doesn't matter. Once you get infected, you wolfman for life. I also really like how they tied a moral life lesson to the Wolfman in facing your personal issues. So the story centers around this guy, the Wolfman, starting off by showing us his not so great upbringing and how his father, who clearly had many issues that he never faced, and instead decided to dump it all on his child, causing him major pain, suffering, and trauma. Flash forward 30 years, where now he is a father living in the big city, trying to convince himself he is not like his dad, when in actuality, he is. Just like his father, he has not faced his issues and instead has just run away from them, and he desperately tries to bury them deep within himself. And I really liked the narrative parallels of the Wolfman and the monster within coming out, paired with unresolved internal issues making you a monster. You know, the idea that if you don't deal with your personal problems, you will become the problem to everyone around you, and you end up destroying your own life and losing everything you care about. So I really liked that narrative tie-in. Now, let's talk about the problems. But first, I think we need to talk about the werewolf problem in general. The problem with werewolves is they're too powerful. They are too OP. They're fast, so you can't outrun them. They can track your scent anywhere you go, so there's no losing them in the forest or something. There's no hiding because, again, they can smell you. Plus, they have super hearing, meaning they can always hear you breathing or your own heartbeat from a football field away. They're super strong, so there's no fighting them off. And unless you're in a concrete bunker, they're gonna get inside whatever building you barricade yourself in. The only thing is silver. But then it's like, the whole Superman kryptonite plot point, which is always just lame and never satisfying to watch. And werewolves being so overpowered is why I believe writing a good werewolf story is so hard to do. And this film suffers from those problems, because a really cool dynamic about this movie is getting to experience changing into a wolfman through the eyes of the main character. But then that becomes a problem later on in the narrative, because they show us all of his really powerful abilities, but then later on when he's the Wolfman, he doesn't seem to have these anymore or doesn't use them. For example, at one point, they show us he is able to hear a spider crawling in a closet all the way on the other side of the house upstairs. He can hear its silent little feet crawling around like a big booming noise. And yet, later on, they tried to hide from the Wolfman by climbing onto a small makeshift greenhouse while he's below them. What? He can hear you breathing. He could probably hear the blood flowing through your veins. Another example is they take refuge in his father's old home that has bars on the windows for obvious reasons, but there are no bars on the upstairs windows. What? Why? Don't worry, the Wolfman can't seem to climb onto a single-story roof. Something that as an average teenager I used to do with ease. But no, not the Wolfman. Keeping in mind that not 5 minutes earlier, they showed us the Wolfman climbing upside down on a smooth metal truck, 15 feet in the sky? But no, a single-story roof is just unclimbable. He also seems to have a hard time climbing ladders for deer blinds. Yeah, I don't know. It just can't be done, I guess. Oh, and he can't get through wooden doors. And again, not to brag, but I myself, as an average-sized man, have broken through wooden front doors before. And all it took was a good pair of boots and one well-placed kick, and it just flew right open. So you're telling us the Wolfman, who you've shown pick up a full-grown man and throw him like a rag doll, who at one point with a single punch broke through a shatter-resistant windshield, can't get through a simple wooden door. Nah, I can't get through that. What is this, mahogany? Forget about it. And lastly, there's this one scene that is so incredibly stupid, it's mind-boggling. So at one point, they try to drive away in the father's old truck, but then the Wolfman shows up and, So they run to a nearby makeshift greenhouse and climb on top using a ladder to hide. Which, first of all, I don't know why you're trying to hide. He saw you climb up there. Also, as we established, he can smell and hear you from a mile away. So you think he's just gonna climb up there because the greenhouse is like 9 feet tall. And honestly, he could probably just jump up there. But no, the Wolfman decides to go inside the greenhouse and give little tickle scratches to the tarp beneath them so that they slowly start to fall through the tears. Ooh, very scary. No, very stupid. Why doesn't he just climb up there and maul them to death? Why is he just tickling their feet for no reason? That whole scene needs to be cut from the movie. But yeah, it's a shame because there was some genuinely scary and tense moments throughout this film. But by the end, when it just became him, his daughter and wife, and it was abundantly clear he wasn't going to kill them, there was really nothing to be afraid of anymore. But like I said, the real problem was, in one scene showing us how powerful the Wolfman was, and then in the next scene making him weak for the convenience of the plot. Which again, is one of the biggest problems of the werewolf concept. But there it is. It got really close to being a good werewolf movie, but just fell short. Still, you could do a lot worse at the theaters than going to see The Wolfman. Anyways, thanks for showing up. I appreciate you, and I'll catch you at the next one.